Violet here, and I was gone for about 8 months, and I haven't really talked a lot about what I read in that time, but I figured it would be fun to, go over the books that I read and really loved. So this is going to be my favorite books from the first half of the year. So, yeah, let's get into it. So I have 9 books that I gave 5 stars, and the only one of them I don't own. So that is Lady Violet Holds a Baby by Grace Burrowes. This is the 5th book in the Lady Violet Mysteries series. It is historical mysteries set in Regency times. And it is about Lady Violet, obviously. She is a widow, very kind of snarky woman, but had a terrible marriage, but still was kind of grieving her husband in ways that made her not kind of antisocial and stuff. And she sort of gets brought out of that by this beautiful French doctor named Hugues Saint-Savier. And also she has a sort of clear back and forth tension with her childhood best friend named Sebastian McKeith, who clearly was in love with her, but her family kind of interfered with that, so they lost touch for a long time. And so the series follows Violet going to various events and getting wrapped up in mysteries. What's interesting about this is that this series is not a murder mystery series, so I'm not sure if it actually counts as a proper cozy because there aren't murders. It's often thefts or kidnappings or disappearances and stuff. And this one's no exception. Violet goes back to her family estate because one of her brothers has recently gotten married and has had a baby, and so they're there for a baby dedication. And while they are there are some younger girls who are around, and they start disappearing, and we're trying to figure out why that's happening. The answer is not really dark. I will let you know if that's a concern for you. But yeah, this one was just really good in a lot of ways. I really appreciated the way that there's sort of this romance arc that's being built up throughout the books, and this book is where it starts to it hits a big shift in sort of the underlying deal with the love triangle between Violet, Saint-Savier, and McKeith, and it's beautifully done. The ending of the mystery thematically connects to it really well. There's just a lot in this one that I thought was just incredibly well done, and I really liked this one. So yes, I have one more book of the series to go so far, but this is my favorite, and I love it very much. Next, we have, the one category, I have not read that much category this year, which is a real shame, but the one 5-star category I have is Her Warrior's Redemption by Michelle Willingham. This came out in November of last year, and if there was one book on this list I wish more people had read, it's this one, because I'm convinced this is one the fewest people have read. It has barely any reviews on Goodreads, and it's fine. I get it. It's a Harlequin historical, but oh my god. Okay, so the deal with this is that basically Brian and Valeria both meet in this is medieval. This is medieval. It's set in early 1200s, and Willingham basically invented a gladiator ring situation. So Brian and Valeria both meet in a gladiator ring, and they're forced to fight and whatever, and they become very close friends during this time of this year that they're together. And so the first sort of chunk of this book takes place in the gladiator pits, where they're trying to survive it and figure out how to get out. And then they do get out. Spoilers, I guess, but it's on the back. But when they get out and they go back home to England or whatever, there's all these other issues, right? Brian is nobody and Valeria is a lady, and so they've been friends, but their relationship can't really work back in their home environment because of the class difference and stuff. And he's trying to figure out a way to be like worthy enough for her in a class sense. There are also like things about royal lineage going on here. King John, one of the King Johns, I think there were like 30 of them, is on the throne right now, and Brian thinks he might be connected to him, so he wants to use that. There's like an archery tournament and stuff. Meanwhile, Valeria genuinely is like, I don't think I want to get married, and if I do, I want this guy specifically. But her dad's like, no, and he doesn't seem to get that, like, she is not the person that she was before she went to the gladiator pits. So it's like, now she can sword fight and kill people, and has killed people, right? So yeah, this book's just so good, and like I love how it's so high stakes in the beginning of it, and she manages to shift it to like these emotional stakes that are also super high and feel impossible after we leave the gladiator zone, and then we kind of introduce more external stakes later, because like the great thing about medieval, and the thing because like I don't know a lot of like all the ins and outs of like English history for several hundred years, is I'm like, when the characters are like, we might incite a war, I'm like, you might? I don't know. So this book is great. I like inhaled this in one sitting. I could not put it down. I think it was released to sort of tie into Gladiator 2 because it was supposed to be more of a moment than it was, but like, God, this book's so good. And no one's read it! And I just, go read this book. It's so good. Okay, spoilers, almost all these are historical. There are two that aren't. Speaking of historical, we have A Gentleman Undone by Cecilia Grant. This is the second of the Blackshear family series. Oh, I forgot. This is the third book in the Legendary Warrior series. You do not need to have read the first ones in order to know what's going on here. I think these are also somewhat connected to some of her other medievals. So yeah. Anyway, okay, Gentleman Undone, Blackshear family book 2. I have read the first full book of the series. There is like a novella that I think is a prequel, and I've not read that yet. Okay, so this one, I don't think you have to have read the first book, though I do think it is helpful to have read it, because those characters show up in here, and the way they sort of react to stuff, I think makes a little more sense if you've read their book. This book is about Will Blackshear. He is one of the Blackshear family sons. They're landed gentry. I don't think they're like titled. And he basically was a soldier, I believe, during the Napoleonic Wars. And he's got some, like, survivor's guilt around that, particularly around one person he couldn't, like, save. And he wants to set up that guy's widow. So he's been trying to make money. And our heroine, Lydia Slaughter, icon legend, I love her. She is a very kind of, like, She's a sex worker. She is very calculating, literally and sort of figuratively, because she is also like a math genius, like really good at probability and stuff like that. And so she wants to make enough money to get out of her current profession, and is going to use cards and like gambling in order to do so. Will kind of clocks that she is a card shark, and so they decide to work together to make money, fleecing like casinos and stuff in order to achieve their goals. And in the process, they fall in love, and it is angsty and it is great. And Lydia is like, I love Lydia so much. She's so like kind of brutal about her life in a way, like, and yeah, she's so good. I love her. Probably my favorite heroine of the year so far. Like, she's just, I love her so much. Will I like a lot as well. This book is super angsty. They are full of longing, and they're both tortured, and it's great. It's so good. So yeah, if you're like a fluffy book person, this is not for you. I wouldn't say the first one is either. I don't think Grant really writes fluffy, but if you just want like really interesting dynamic characters put in like some situations that are not the norm and how they deal with that, yeah, just really great. And I think the ending of this is like really interesting, and unlike much that I've read in Regency. So, highly recommend this one. Okay, next we've got very bog standard Regency, but it is by one of my favorites, Mary Ballogh's First Comes Marriage. This is the first book in the Huxtable's Quintet. So, this one I remember getting because I just thought this cover was so beautiful. It is still, this might be my favorite Balogh cover, honestly. I don't know what it is about it, it just makes me so happy. So, Elliot Wallace, Viscount Lingate, is basically tasked with tracking down this heir to a different title, like a title that's like in the family, basically. Our heroine's brother is the heir. So they are like pretty poor landed gentry in this small town, and he sort of pops up and plucks them out and into like the lap of luxury because of, shenanigans, and suddenly the youngest Huxtable, the only boy, is like this heir to a title now. And so that is how Elliot and our heroine Vanessa end up meeting. Vanessa there are four of them. So she is, I believe, the middle sister, and she's the one who was married. She is now widowed, and she's like, unfortunately, like the plain sister of the three. But she realizes basically that due to reasons, Elliot is probably going to propose to her older sister, and her older sister has been like pining for this guy forever. And so Vanessa's like, you know what, I'm gonna jump the gun here. I'm gonna ask if we get married, because like I've already had like a good marriage, and I can be like, we can have like a fine on paper marriage, and it'll be whatever. And Elliot agrees to it. And so the book is largely their marriage of convenience. Also a lot of Vanessa and all of the other Huxtables hanging out, and being very cute. This book's so like light and charming and fun, kind of the opposite of this, to be honest. And it was just so, like, it just made me feel really happy to read. And Elliot does start to really love Vanessa and like appreciate her and think she's beautiful, and there are these parts where he tells her that she's beautiful, and it just made me so happy. But one of like the best parts of this book is actually in the beginning. They're at this ball, or like a country dance basically, and he meets Vanessa at this country dance, and he's like, oh, poor girl, she's like the plain one of her family. But the thing is that Vanessa really loves dancing, and when she dances, like her whole face lights up, and like she's so magnetic, and he notices that about her, and it's so cute. So this book's just so fun and charming, and it's definitely one of those where, like, if you were someone who wants a really plot-heavy book, no. If you want a plot-heavy book, you should go read this one. But if you are, like, here for characters, I just loved hanging out with these characters. So, I will probably get back to the series next year, but I love this book so much. It's so good. Okay, we've left the fluff. We are into probably the most intense book I've read this year, and that is Flowers from the Storm by Laura Kinsale. I have been like on a bit of like a project of my own to read a lot of like the tentpole romances, historical romances. Like, okay, this is this very famous historical romance author. What is their best book or most known book? And that is definitely the case for Kinsale. Flowers from the Storm is like one of the historical romance texts that people point to, particularly for old school romances. And, oh my god, what a journey this is. This is like an epic. It's like 500 pages long, and you can't really, like, you can't cut anything out either. It's not a book of like, oh, okay, we could trim the fat. No. So, this book, okay. Sebastian, Duke of Jervaux, is a classic rake. He's raking so hard, he ends up getting into a duel. And in like the 3 days before that duel happens, he's also like a math guy, and he's working with this blind Quaker man, and he runs into said Quaker man's daughter, who is Maddie Timms, who is our heroine. She doesn't really like him because she's a Quaker, and he's like the epitome of excess and sin. But he's like, I mean, you're kind of like fun. You're interesting. Not that it really goes anywhere, and probably wouldn't have, except at the duel 3 days later, he has a stroke. And it's like such a bad stroke, people think he died for a bit. So we cut to several months later. Maddie is volunteering at an asylum that one of her cousins runs, and she sees that Gervaux is there. And so it turns out he did not die, but what happens is he had a stroke, and it has really damaged his, like, some of his mobility and a lot of his, not cognitive reasoning, but like understanding. It's very hard for him to hear, like, understand what people are saying to him, and maybe somewhat affected his impulse control. He can like get very angry and ragey and stuff. But she recognizes that he is not like insane. He's just, you just need to like work harder to communicate with him. So she decides to try and basically rehabilitate him. And so that is how their relationship starts. And that's basically the first 250-ish pages of this book. And then we enter full, like, us against the world. They're, like, on the run and trying to figure things out. And it goes from there. And then there's, like, the marriage of convenience. And it's one of the most, like, intense books I've ever read. All the asylum stuff is incredibly heavy and very, very intense. But on a craft level, what Kinsale is doing in this book is, like, so good, because when we're in Gervaux' point of view, particularly in the early parts of the asylum stuff, she does the dialogue through his perspective. So you're trying to, like, piece through what everyone's saying all the time. And as the book continues and he gets better and better, like, the dialogue starts to change to reflect that he can understand things more, and it's so good, so well done. It's so good. Truly, just one of, like, the best written books I've read this year. Really interesting. Maddie is a Quaker, and a lot of her stuff, like her arc in this, is because she is, like, a true believer as a Quaker, like, you know, not believing in excess and stuff like that. Like, being with a duke is so opposed to everything she believes, and so, like, her trying to figure out how to manage that, and, like, what she wants and versus what her desire for him and everything, like, it's so good. It's so good. It's wild and wonderful and intense, and, like, a thing you really probably shouldn't read a ton. Like, it's a lot, but it's definitely worth reading at least once. I think it's just so well written, and the characters are so interesting. Again, this is, like, I've never read a Quaker heroine. I probably never will. Again, like, no one writes them. So, yeah, just really good. So good. Would recommend. Okay, we're on to one of our two non-historicals. We have Smoke and Shadows by Tanya Huff. This is an urban fantasy that is the first in a series. I think it's called the Smoke Trilogy. It is a loose sequel series to the Vicky Nelson series, which is one of the earliest urban fantasy series. And so this is about a gay Latinx young man named Tony Foster who works at a film studio on this, like, kind of trashy paranormal detective show. And And he's had a relationship and broken up with this 450-year-old vampire named Henry Fitzroy, who was in the first series. Both of these characters are in that first series. And there is a spoiler about, like, what happens in that, but it doesn't really affect this book too much. So, Tony's working at this paranormal detective show, but he starts noticing that things are getting a little weird. Like, the set seems like it might be haunted. Like, the shadows are moving in weird ways. And he's like, that seems bad. And then someone, like, dies on set, and he's like, that's worse. And basically what happens is that there's, like, a sort of alien invasion situation happening, and the only person who knows about it is a witch who works on set as, like, a VFX person, and she is really disinterested in actually stopping it. She's like, well, we're doomed. It's fine. And he's like, no, it's not fine. So he ends up bringing Henry in, and so to deal with everything. So it's literally about the three of them trying to handle the problem of possessing ghost alien invasion, and it's so much fun. This is great. I laughed so many times. There are parts that are genuinely scary and creepy and unnerving. The way that, like, she incorporates Tony and Henry's relationship, because they've broken up but they're friends, but, like, the dynamics of that are weird because Tony's like, I don't think Henry's over me, and Henry's definitely not, and there's just all this nonsense with that. It's also it's so gay, which is so great. Like, it's so fun to have a, like, basically, like, this gay horror action movie. It's all, like, I want more gay action movies, just in general. And this really, it scratched that itch for me. So, just like everything I wanted out of an urban fantasy, honestly, this is so much fun. I love it. Speaking of funny times, we have the very reflective Charming the Prince by Teresa Medeiros. This has a step back, and it's a beautiful step back. Look at that. This is another medieval. And I was like, after reading this, I was like, okay, I think I might love medieval. So I gotta do a medieval deep dive, I think. So, Lord Banner he's this very celebrated knight. He was this big time warrior or whatever. But now he is a father to so many children. He's apparently the most virile man to ever virile, and so he's got a bajillion kids. He is a widower. But he's like, I need a wife for all these kids. But she cannot be hot, because if I want to sleep with her, I know I am too fertile, so she will have more kids. And I cannot have more children, because I already have too many children. So he sends, like, one of his dudes off to be like, go find me a woman who will be a good mom, but who is not hot. Please, I beg. And unfortunately, he had one job and he did not manage it, because when said wife comes back and she takes her hood off, she's gorgeous. And he's like, how dare you? It's like, this setup is so ridiculous and it's so good. Like, she truly leans into it. He's just like, I'm gonna kill you. How could you do this to me? You had one job. And he could not manage it. Meanwhile, she's like, basically left this, like, pretty abusive environment, kind of Cinderella-esque. Her father got married and then, like, he died or whatever, and or did he die? No, I think he just, like, stopped caring about her. He sucks. Her whole family sucks. And so she sort of takes the opportunity to be like, yes, I will marry a man I've never met just to get away from my family. And then she shows up, and this guy is so hot and so tall and so beautiful, and he just was, like, refuses to engage with her. And basically is, like, just throws her to the children and is like, have fun! I won't talk to you. And then she and the kids, like, team up to be like, we're gonna get him, and it's great. And then they finally, like, actually talk, and he's like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have freaked out because you were hot. A struggle we all have. This was so funny. Even down to the last, like, sentence of the epilogue, I was laughing out loud. It was so good. This book is a delight and a half. It's not like the most romantic, but it's so much fun. There's like all these shenanigans with the kids, and it's just so charming. Charming the Prince is charming. Who would have known? But yeah, loved this. Cannot wait to read more Teresa Medeiros. Okay, last historical. We have The Proposition by Judith Ivory, which just technically has a step back. Like, and I mean technically, because like this ain't, this isn't what the people really want, but it does have one. Okay, speaking of like project reading historical romance tentpoles, Proposition was definitely one I wanted to get to. This is basically a My Fair Lady / Pygmalion sort of spin. So, Lady Edwina Balogh is a lady, obviously, but she doesn't have a lot of money, and so she actually works. I think this is actually Victorian era, so it's not as, like, wild for her to, like, have a job, even as a lady. But her job is basically that she is, like, an, eloquence coach / someone who is just, like, goes to coach young women who are like kind of socially awkward and stuff to be more socially appealing for the temps and the marriage mart. And so she is hired by these two brothers to take rat catcher, very charming man Mick Tremor and turn him into like a guy who can pass for a gentleman at this party. And so in order to do this, of course, Mick has to like move into her house because they had like a deadline of like, I think 6 weeks or something like that in order to get him ready. And so she is basically teaching him all these classes and like, a lot of it's about his speech, changing his speech patterns and stuff, which again, I guess I have a thing between this and Flowers in the Storm for people who are like really doing incredibly cool things with dialogue and like dialect. The way that his speech changes throughout this book is really cool. And just so like carefully plotted and like meticulous. And meanwhile, he is attracted to her. There's, due to reasons, very slapstick shenanigan reasons, he's like seen her legs early on, and he's like, he's a leg guy, apparently. He thinks her legs are the hottest legs to ever leg, which is great because she does not think of herself as hot at all. And he's like, are you kidding? You're so hot. Like, you're incredibly hot. And so, yeah, that's a lot of it's their push and pull and, like, the sort of idea of, like, okay, are you changing someone too much? Or, what does that mean for him to sort of change classes or pretend to change classes, and when does your like actual heritage matter versus the performance of what your heritage was? And so like what we're doing with class here is really interesting. The language is interesting. I will say I know that there was a book club that did this recently, and they found the whole dynamic kind of creepy. I will say there is a scene in here that I would call dubcon, like dubious. This was 1999, so it's like right before when we sort of colloquially call like turn of the century and like old school ends. So I don't think that the line is that clean in real life, but I did not mind it. I will say that I can understand why people would. I felt like these two were so bad. Like, they're talking to each other constantly, but they are very bad at actually understanding each other, and that felt like that's where it kind of hits ahead in the book for that part. And so, yeah, I thought this was really interesting and really dynamic. Maybe it helps because I did picture Mick Tremor as Tom Hardy throughout the whole book, and I wasn't mad about it. This was so good, and I'd say if you were down to read something that is a little more on the, like, boundary pushing scale in terms of, like, intimate stuff, not, like, I don't think this is, like, this isn't like an erotic romance or anything like that, but if you are more okay with dubcon stuff, I think that this would be interesting to check out, or if you're like curious if you can handle it, this might be good. But yeah, just really, really solid book. incredible characters. So, finally, the last one for the first half of the year is a YA, a light sci-fi YA. It is The Weight of the Stars by Ancrum. On the back, I'll just say, this is I think the first line of it too. 10 million light years from now, bathed in the radiation of a time without time, are the bones of a girl who loved Ryan Bird. This is, again, light sci-fi. Basically, there was this space expedition that occurred 17, 18 years before the book starts that was exclusively young women. And it was not meant to be a voyage that people could come back from. It was just to go and see how far you could get in the galaxy. And so one of the main characters of this book, whose name is Alexandria, is the daughter of one of the women who went on this space expedition. She moves to this town, and that is when she runs into Ryan Bird, who is our actual real main character, who is 17-ish. She's the legal guardian to her younger brother, who is, I think selectively mute would be the term for it, who has a child, and they live in a trailer park. They're very poor. She bikes everywhere. But she has basically formed this, it's not really a clique, but this group of friends at her high school who are largely kind of queer outsiders, and she's sort of known for getting outsiders to feel comfortable with her group, basically. And so when Alexandria shows up, one of her teachers asks her to welcome her into the fold, and that goes pretty poorly. Alexandria ends up getting her arm broken from shenanigans involving that, and as a result, Ryan sort of feels really bad about this and sort of steps in to try and help with things. And it turns out Alexandria has a satellite that she sets up, and she broadcasts every night to see if she can hear any messages from her mother. So Ryan, when she can't get on the roof anymore due to the arm, Ryan steps in to do the satellite thing, and that is how they end up meeting and then becoming friends and then falling in love, and it's so beautiful. I have a real soft spot for stories about queer kids are kind of messy and trying to form their own communities, and so yes, this is about Ryan and Alexandria's relationship, but a lot of it is about how all of the friend group work together on things, and it's just so beautiful. And I did cry at the end of this book. I will not get into what happens there, but it made me feel so good. It's not a tragedy, I will say that it's not a tragedy. But it's so romantic and it's so beautiful, and I loved it so much. So yeah, was not expecting this. I am not someone who loves YA in general. And then I was like, oh no, because I finished this at the library, and I was just out there wiping my eyes, trying not to cry very loudly at a library, because this book got me. Just stomped on my heart at the end. But yeah, so that was all of the books that I read through June that I utterly adored, and I hope that you found a couple that interest you. Would highly recommend all of these books in various ways. And yeah, guess at the end of the year I'll make my what else I read that I loved dearly, because I have had a couple of 5-star scents, but it's touch and go for me on that. I'm way pickier than I thought I would be. I read 100 books, I think, by the end of June, and I only had 8 or 9 5 stars. I don't know if that's a normal ratio or not, but we're trying our best out here. But anyway, thank you all so much for hearing me, listening to me yap about these books, and I will talk to you later. Bye!